In the Manhattan Federal Courthouse, Matt Murdock calls his first witness, Colonel Carol Danvers. She approaches the stand and is asked if she remembers the events of July 19th this year. She does. She was part of a group of representatives from the superhero community that traveled to Alpine, Utah. Their purpose was simple: to confront Bruce Banner. He was surprised to have visitors at what was supposed to be his secret lab, but is pleased to see some familiar faces nonetheless. Tony and Carol asked him to come outside, promising everything will be okay. Stark told Banner to stay calm no matter what. He believed in Bruce Banner. Sadly, not everyone agreed with that sentiment. In the courthouse, Tony's testimony further filled the gaps. Bruce was confused at everyone being there, so they explained who Ulysses is and the content of his latest vision. Banner was hurt at these words, worried and all too aware of the Hulk's incredible power. Stark, however, still wasn't convinced, so the group as a whole struck a deal to get proof one way or another before they did anything. After all, Banner was their friend. He deserved the benefit of their doubt. That being said, they'd already done some investigation, and things weren't looking good. Hank McCoy was able to hack into Bruce's system and found evidence that Banner had been experimenting on himself. Bruce confirms he was doing this, but insists his new work was keeping the Hulk at bay. Still, the heroes were worried, so Maria Hill placed the man under arrest. This frustrated Banner, who insisted that thanks to his experiments he hasn't turned in almost a year. And now they come to his home, accuse him of who the hell do these people think they... And then, all hell broke loose. The Avengers closed in on the attacker, only to find Clint Barton, ready and willing to surrender. Steve Rogers demanded to know why he would do this. Barton has only one answer: because Bruce asked him to. In court, Clint tells of an earlier meeting he had with Banner. The scientist gave Barton the tech needed to make a bow capable of killing Banner, in the hopes that if his experiments ever went wrong, Clint would do the right thing and take him down. Banner chose Barton because Bruce was certain that Hawkeye is one of the few people who will eventually be able to live with this. Bruce insisted this was not an insult. Rather, Banner was willing to trust Hawkeye with his life. And though it had been a full year, he still dreamed as the Hulk. He dreamed of rage and blood. If things ever got out of control, well, at least Banner knew he'd tried everything else, and nothing worked. These words cause a stir in court, and Matt Murdock points out that Clint's criminal past makes it hard to believe him. Hawkeye hopes his more recent, heroic behavior would count for something, and it does, to a degree, but things only really turn around in the courtroom when Beast takes the stand. He is able to confirm that the arrow was clearly based off the work of Bruce Banner. More still, Hank found video testimony of Banner clearly saying he asked Clint to do this if he ever hulked out. The question then becomes whether or not Banner was really about to turn into the Hulk. Tony insists he wasn't. He was standing right there. All he saw was a man betrayed by his peers, by his friends. Clint, however, argues that his own eyes are much better and more acute than the average person. It's why he's such a good shot in the first place. He could see Banner was getting agitated, and his eyes had a flicker of green in them. The vision was coming true, so Hawkeye had to act. Carol says that Banner's own wishes were granted in all of this. Nobody but him got hurt, which is what he would have wanted. She didn't know what Barton was going to do. Nobody saw him sneak off, but in her heart, she knows he saved lives because of his actions. She also points out that thanks to Ulysses, her team and S.H.I.E.L.D. have been stopping threats all over the world. Tony, on the other hand, has a different view entirely. At the time, and now in court, Stark insists this is not what they should be doing. They're supposed to be guardians, protectors, avengers, defenders. This is something else entirely. He blames Carol for pushing this madness, insisting none of it is right. They just killed a man in cold blood, and all Stark can wonder now is who's next. Their friend, a founding member of the Avengers, is dead because of Carol and her followers. In Utah, these words echoed with many of the heroes on site, who began to see what Stark has been saying this whole time. Later, in his home, Tony did not need to hear the verdict for Clint's trial. He already knows it. But Friday has an additional piece of information. Tony's scan of Ulysses' brain is far from complete, but the AI thinks she has figured out how the Inhuman's powers work. Tony asks to see it, and what he sees shocks him. Mary Jane asks just what they're looking at. Tony only replies, "It is their future." Hello and welcome to Comic Island. My name is Arden, and this is my recap and review of Civil War II number 3. So, here we have yet another big issue with as much emotional impact and strength as the first comic in this series. I'm serious, this one really hit home for me. I think the writing was on point. I like how Bendis used the courtroom setting to frame the story, and I think he's got a really good handle on these characters. I like how his writing is so fixed on making this war about personal issues over political or philosophical ones. That makes this event feel much more character-driven and is easier to relate to because of it. David Marquez is also continuing his trend of legendary art. The way this guy does facial expressions adds so much to the ongoing events, but he's also a master at setting up awesome panels like this one showing all the heroes gathered together, or this one showcasing the sudden and pretty graphic death of Bruce Banner. He's just so good at this. I really can't get enough of it, and I cannot tell you just how much this work adds to the quality of the comic. Meanwhile, yet another hero has fallen. Marvel's really upping the stakes here. And while I'm sure this will garner the usual reactions, fans upset that the character is gone even though he'll probably return sooner or later, or people who think they're clever for pointing out this death in a comic book is a comic book death. But honestly, I think these deaths add a lot to the series. It's about consequences and casualties, both of which are real things that happen in war, and I'm glad this comic doesn't shy away from. These deaths justify a lot of Tony's actions, but don't go so far as to make Carol a bad guy either. I get that most people, myself included, are going to be leaning towards Tony's side, especially now. But I totally get where Carol and her group are coming from. Lives are on the line, and it feels like just a waste to ignore Ulysses and what he can do. That being said, I'm increasingly looking at this kid with suspicion. His mind can't be read, so right now we're really only going by his word. So I'm really interested to see what Tony found in his brain. In fact, that's another great thing about this event. I have no idea where things are going. Oh sure, there's going to be some heroes fighting heroes, but right now this comic keeps going in directions I think it wouldn't. I was expecting a big battle against the Hulk this issue, which would have really cemented the divide and kicked off the war. Instead, we got something much more morally ambiguous. It still seems like the final straw, but boy did I not expect it to play out like this. And I like that this comic keeps challenging me and has me guessing. I don't think we'll ever find out if Banner was really going to turn into the Hulk, and I don't think we should. That's something we're going to have to decide for ourselves. I believe that Clint believes he saw something he was already looking for, but beyond that, I'm just not sure. It's unsettling and not obvious, which I really like. It made for a good read, so this comic comes recommended. Civil War II hasn't really let me down yet, and at this rate, it doesn't seem like it's going to. But between the Hydra Cap, Tony apparently on his way out, and this, the Marvel Universe sure seems to be unraveling. It reminds me a lot of what happened during and after the first Civil War, where things got pretty dark before the heroes eventually turned things around during the events of Siege. I'm not sure if that's what they're going for, but if so, I don't really object to it. The great thing about Siege is after years of darkness and losing the big three, Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, it was a really big deal seeing them back together and back in action. Are we heading in the same direction here? Well, it sure seems interesting that Thor isn't Thor, Cap isn't Cap, and pretty soon we're going to have a new Iron Man. Whatever you make of all of it, Marvel is being pretty bold, unapologetic, and different. They have my attention right now, and that's a good thing. Today I once again woke up to a new Marvel universe, a little bit different than what we had yesterday. And until I see the effects of these changes, well, for now I'm approaching it all with cautious optimism. Who knows what the future will hold? Well, aside from Ulysses, I guess. But whatever happens, I hope you stay tuned and we find out together. So thanks for watching, and if you're interested in the full reading order of Civil War II, you can find it on our website, including links to all the reviews I've done for this event so far. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and keep reading comics.